There are some reasons to be optimistic, including the fact that a bunch of sports cards are continuing to go up in value. In today's Sports Card Investor, I'll tell you about 5 of the hottest cards on the market.
My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love.
Hello, sports card investors. I hope your week is off to a great start. Mine is off to a great start. I am optimistic by the fact that we are seeing sports card prices continue to go up a little bit. We had seen prices drop pretty substantially 3 weeks in a row. And then the week before last, I told you prices had plateaued for the most part and were starting to go up a little bit. And we saw more of the same this past week. Prices have started to go up slightly across the board. When I look across all of my data that I'm tracking in my Market Movers data tool, on average, I'm seeing card values go up a little bit. And in fact, I've got some statistics to share with you. Transaction volume continues to drop some. So this past Sunday on eBay had 12% less transactions, less sports cards sold than the Sunday prior, based on the cards that I'm looking at. So those are key rookie cards of key players. And we've seen that drop in transaction volume consistently now for, I think, 5 weeks in a row. We've seen less transactions than the week before. But the last couple of weeks, we've seen prices start to go back up. And in fact, based on all of the cards that I'm looking at, this past Sunday, the average card on eBay sold for 37% more than what they had sold for the Sunday before. Now, that data can be skewed if some particularly large dollar cards are sold, which there were some sold this Sunday, not the Sunday before. It can make that data look a little bit bigger. But if you consistently look at the price graphs of a lot of big name players with high transaction volumes, you'll see the pattern of their cards stabilized or starting to go up a little bit in value. Now, the question is, will it continue this way? And, I think that people have very different opinions on this. If you read the comments in some of my prior videos, or I'm sure the comments right here in this video, you're going to see some people saying, Jeff is absolutely crazy. We are seeing the dead cat bounce. So if you're not familiar with the dead cat bounce, that is a financial term that financial analysts use to describe when you are coming out of a recession period. Oftentimes, if you look at the economic graphs related to a recession, you'll see, things decline. Like, for example, stocks go down and down, GDP, other things will go down in terms of their value. And then you'll see this period of time where there is this bump and it looks like things are starting to recover, only for them to start to go back down again on the other side. Economists call this a dead cat bounce, and the name comes from the fact that even if a cat has a huge fall and he's going to die, he still bounces up at the bottom before he goes back down again. That's where it gets the name from. Is that what we're seeing in the sports card market? Some people in my comments will tell you absolutely so. You should be pessimistic, not optimistic. There's no reason to believe that sports cards will remain, on the footing that they are today, and there are more gloomy days ahead. I'm choosing to be optimistic about it. I think that I think that this market was so hot before we had this cooling off period the last few weeks. There is still a lot of investment interest in sports cards. There are still a lot of people swimming around the sports card market, which have big dollars to spend and invest and may not be as affected by the current economic slowdown as some people are. And in my opinion, they're looking at the sports card market and saying, wow, I can buy some players right now, some really good quality players at a 20%, 30%, 40% discount compared to what they were selling for at the beginning of March. I think there's some investors that are willing to put the money in and take that chance and buy those players. So I am hoping that this is not the dead cat bounce, that this is something sustainable and that we're going to see prices at least remain stable through the time that we finally get sports going again. And then we're going to start to see an overall increase in prices as we have been seeing the last several months before sports went on their hiatus. Only time will tell, but I am optimistic about it. I am also optimistic about the fact that we are theoretically going to have some sports starting again in June. The PGA is pushing to try to have their first golf tournament in June, the Memorial. They're hoping to keep scheduled and have that happen during the month of June. They've already had to, of course, delay things like the Masters and the British Open just got canceled. But they are really hoping to get the PGA back in June. I am hoping that they can be successful at that as well. In South Korea, their baseball league, the Korean Baseball Organization, has started practice, and they're actually having some scrimmages across teams. They're hoping to start their full season in the next 2 weeks. Fingers crossed that they can get that done. Of course, if anyone turns up with a positive test, then that may delay the start of the season. But if they are able to get their season started in the next 2 weeks, that's a really good sign. Now, I will tell you that South Korea has taken everything more seriously than we have in America in terms of social distancing, in terms of people really, really seriously, locking themselves down and being as serious as they can about how they're treating this entire thing. So, it may take a little longer for us to get back in America, but nonetheless, if sports come back on in South Korea, that is a glimmer of hope that sports can come back on everywhere at some point in time. And maybe it will be further encouragement for us in America to stay at home and do your social distancing. Seriously, take that seriously, people, so that we can get sports back on TV as quickly as possible. I am also optimistic that this week, in fact, Wednesday night, is my membership program's big monthly giveaway. Every month I have a live stream with my members and I open up boxes. And this month I'm opening up Contenders Hobby. I'm opening up Prism, both football and basketball. I give 100% of the cards away to members of my membership program. That is Wednesday night at 9 p.m. If you're not part of the membership program, go sign up right now because you can still be part of the live stream as long as you sign up by 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. Eastern time, you can be part of the live stream. Of course, if you miss it this month, you can always sign up and be part of the live stream in May because it's something I do every month. It's a lot of fun. I answer questions from my members and give away all of those cards. So all of those things are happening. I'm fairly optimistic. I am also optimistic and happy, and this is affecting card prices, so pay attention to this. This is definitely something to pay attention to what I'm about to say. I am also optimistic and happy that there's a great documentary which is going to be coming out on Netflix in the next couple of weeks. The documentary is called The Last Dance. It is the story of Michael Jordan and the 1997 Chicago Bulls and their last title. And they actually had cameras follow them around that year all year. And they apparently have sat on most of this footage and have done nothing with it until now. And they put together this very extensive documentary. It's several episodes following the Bulls through the 1997 season. It was originally going to air later in the summer, and ESPN, who is producing the documentary, moved up the airing. It is starting on April the 19th. So it is starting in just a couple of weeks on Netflix, and it will go through May the 17th with several episodes during that time period. And what we're seeing is the announcement from ESPN recently that they're going to move up this documentary is having a very direct, distinct impact on sports card prices. So what a place to start my top 5 episode. 5 of the hottest sports cards right now, 5 cards that are going up in value. And the first card on my list that I'm going to share, it's not Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's cards have had a lot of popularity around them recently. There has been value increases with Michael Jordan cards. There's been a lot of transaction volumes. But the guy who has actually gone up the most in the last 90 days, and in particular in the last few weeks since this announcement, Michael Jordan's counterpart, Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen leads my list this week because there are savvy sports card investors out there such as you who are anticipating that this documentary, when there's no other sports on TV, so many of us are going to sit back and watch this story of the 1997 Bulls. And there are a lot of sports card investors that are thinking, well, if there's no sports on TV and there's going to be a lot of people watching this documentary, then maybe people are going to go buy the cards of the players in this documentary. That is a smart assumption. Let's look at Scottie Pippen's prices. We're going over here to my Market Movers data tool, and we are looking at his 1988 Fleer PSA 9. This is his rookie card. This is what it looks like. We're looking at PSA 9 because there's more of these. They're more attainable. There's more transaction volume than you would find with other cards. So we'll look at the PSA 9. That is the card. And if you look at the sales chart over the last 90 days, this card is up 430%. 430% in the last 90 days. You could have bought this card back in January for $56, $50, $42. If you bought this card yesterday, you would have paid $299 for it. But even a couple of weeks ago, you could have bought this card for $125. There has been a big run-up in card prices of this particular card as people are anticipating this documentary. We're seeing this with Pippen, and we're seeing this with Jordan. Not quite to the same extent percentage-wise, but Jordan cards, a lot of popularity around those right now. And we're seeing it with other historical players from that era as well. Another player from that era in time, Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem Olajuwon has seen his card prices go up, and whether this is a direct result of the documentary or whether this is just the fact that Hakeem Olajuwon's cards were his rookie year was the same year as Jordan. So, Jordan's rookies were 86 Fleer. That's kind of his iconic rookie card, his 1986 Fleer basketball. Well, Hakeem Olajuwon was one of the other huge players in 1986 Fleer. There were actually a bunch of huge players in 1986 Fleer. I did an episode about it a few weeks ago if you want to go back and watch it. But guys like Charles Barkley and Karl Malone, they were all rookie cards in 86 Fleer. But Hakeem Olajuwon was one of those cards. So looking at his PSA 9, you can see the uptick in his card prices recently as well. He's been on a general increase over the last 90 days. His cards are 84% up over the last 90 days. But in particular, since the announcement that the documentary is going to get moved up, he's all the way up at $413 now. And that's a card that you could have had for $275 a few weeks ago. There was a low sale of $195, but that was probably just kind of an outlier low sale. But clearly, the overall trend line over the last 90 days is very positive, and the last few days have been bringing prices in the neighborhood of about $400 for his PSA 9. From 1986 Fleer. So perhaps people are feeling a little bit nostalgic, and perhaps people are thinking about some of these old stars, and they're thinking about Jordan's rookie year, and they're thinking about 1986 Fleer and all of that type of thing. And that's what we're seeing with some of these card prices. Another historically great basketball player that has seen his cards go up a lot over the last 90 days, not somebody who was from Jordan's rookie year, someone who came along a little bit later, but who just got announced into the Hall of Fame, is Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan is a player whose cards, honestly, historically have probably been quite undervalued. And finally, he's getting a little bit more of his due now that his Hall of Fame announcement has finally happened. Over the weekend on Saturday, he got announced into the Hall of Fame. Now, we didn't see a huge spike because of his announcement. I did a video last year where I talked about, if you go back and look at the last Hall of Fame classes in all major sports, you tend to see a spike right when it's announced that someone has made the Hall of Fame. I haven't seen that as much with the basketball or baseball Hall of Fame classes from this year. I think perhaps sports card investors have gotten more savvy and they've watched my videos and they've anticipated that that might happen. So they're buying the cards in advance of the announcement. But what I have seen, whether it's Jeter or Duncan or these other players who have gotten into the Hall, is a general escalation in their card prices in the months ahead and leading into their Hall of Fame announcement. And Tim Duncan is no different. When we look at his 1997 Topps base PSA 10, you can see that this card is up 498% over the last 90 days. Think about that, a 498% increase. That's massive. You could have bought these cards 30 days ago for $45, $38, $45, $43. Now you're going to be shelling out $227. $192, as much as $252 some sold for this particular card. Again, interest, in him has gone up substantially over the last few months as people have been anticipating him getting the Hall of Fame, and his cards are finally becoming worth what they probably should have been worth all along. But Tim Duncan is not the only historical player, along with Hakeem and Jordan, or Pippen rather, and Jordan, all of these guys. This is happening somewhat in other sports as well. So let's shift gears and talk about a all-time great from the sport of football who recently had some news that, kind of changed his place of what team he was playing for and has caused some renewed interest, at least by certain fan bases. Of course, you probably know I'm talking about Tom Brady. And we are looking here at Tom Brady's Skybox Dominion football from 2000 in PSA 10. And so looking at his graph, his cards have been trending up slightly. They basically, overall, the trend line has been about even for the last 90 days. But if you look at the last few weeks, since it was announced he was leaving New England and going to the Bucs, that's where things start to look kind of interesting. So the day of the announcement was actually here on March the 17th, when his cards went up to $142. Cards that the few days prior had been, $20-30 less than that. They saw a little bit of a spike right when it was announced that he made the Bucs. But then in the subsequent days, they dipped back down again to the sub $100 level. But then we've started to see a fairly consistent run up over the course of the last couple of weeks. These cards have fairly consistently pushed up in price over the last couple of weeks, and they are now up to $135. So I think that that's kind of an interesting trend. This might be fans in Tampa getting excited. This might, buying up some of these cards. Of course, there's not a ton of these cards out there. There's not a ton of Tom Brady, rookie cards in general on the market. So you're looking at maybe we're talking 1 or 2 transactions a day for these cards. But as they hit the market, fans are starting to buy him up. I'm guessing you got some Tampa Bay fans. I'm guessing you got some fans who love him now that he's not in New England. I will tell you personally, I am not a fan of the New England Patriots. I am an Atlanta guy. So, of course, now I could not be a fan of the New England Patriots after what happened in the Super Bowl a few years ago. I've always respected Tom Brady. I personally find him a little bit smug. So I'm not a huge fan of his. But, of course, his play has been unbelievably good. But I couldn't buy his cards while he was the guy on the Patriots. I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I really didn't like him. And I didn't really like the Patriots, especially after the Falcons Super Bowl loss a few years ago. But now that he's not on the Patriots anymore, now that he's on the Bucs, maybe I'll buy some Tom Brady cards. He is an all-time great after all, and I don't feel as threatened by him now that he's in a Tampa Bay uniform. I feel like, okay, that's kind of cute. That's kind of adorable that he's going to have a little pirate flag on the side of his hat. So I feel more okay now about buying a Tom Brady card. So maybe some of you out there feel the same way that I do, and we're going to see Tom Brady cards continue to go up, and maybe that explains why he's seen a bit of a rise in his prices over the last couple of weeks. All right, so those are 4 of my top 5, and I've now taken you through 4 kind of historic players in sports. Let's go the opposite direction. Let's go modern. Because there is one basketball player who is a rookie this year who has really seen his cards continue to push up. And gosh, there's so much interest in this guy. He has been probably the hottest of all of the rookies, certainly at the time the season was paused, and his prices continue to push up. And I am talking about from the Chicago Bulls and from North Carolina before that, the Tar Heels, Kobe White. Kobe White's cards have drawn a lot of interest. Here's Kobe White's graph. In fact, let's take this one full screen so you can really see how steep that curve has gone. And of course, he had some amazing games this season. He had some 30-point games in a row. He had some great efforts, hit a bunch of threes, setting some rookie records. So it's no surprise that his trend line on this graph on your screen is gone so far up. I mean, this is his 2019 Prism Basketball Silver Raw. And these cards could have been had around the January timeframe for about $25. And these cards are currently about $94, $86, $92. So, I mean, we've seen a huge increase over the course of the last several months. But what you have seen with Kobe specifically, Kobe White, is that even though his card prices came down a little bit over kind of the course of March, as most of the card market came down substantially, his nudged down a little bit. But it feels like sports card investors are not willing to let this guy go. Because if you look at him, his prices as of today are almost what they were back when the card market was at its all-time peak. The card market was at its all-time peak right around March the 10th. If you look across the entire sports card market, around March the 10th, that was basically the epicenter for the card market being at its total peak before the sports hiatus and all that stuff started to happen and things started to come back down. His cards were right about $100, and they're currently right about $95. So while a lot of players have seen their card prices drop 20, 30, 40%, interest in Kobe White remains very high, and his cards continue to fight their way back up. People are excited about Kobe White, and people are excited about the fact that he might be, or maybe he now clearly is, the third best rookie behind Zion and Ja in that class, and maybe eventually he'll be even higher than third. We'll see. So that is Kobe White. So that is your top 5 for today. Those are 5 cards that, despite everything going on in the world around us, they are still going up in value. And the lesson here is there is still substantial money to be made as a sports card investor, even when there is a sports hiatus. Even when there are no sports on your TV, if you are savvy about who you're buying and you're thinking through your selections, you're thinking about what other types of events taking place, like a documentary or a Hall of Fame announcement, might affect card prices, there is still opportunity to make money. And if you want my advice on what cards you should be buying, then you should join my membership program. For less than $10 a month, you get my card pick of the week every week. And then, of course, you also get to be part of the live stream where I give boxes like this away. So go check it out. Go to sportscardinvestor.com and click on membership in the top menu bar. Again, go to sportscardinvestor.com and click membership. Thank you all so much. Hope you and your family are safe and sound, and look forward to seeing you back in a couple of days for my next episode. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube and to my podcast. Every subscription helps. I appreciate it. Thank you, and take care.